If you're a Lewis Hamilton fan, then we've got some bad news. He has just lost hope in his title chances and Mercedes is a long way off the pace. So is it really over for the 7-time world champion? What did the 7-time world champion say about his hopes this season? And what did a Formula 1 commentator call a cheap shot at Hamilton? Stay tuned to find out. First up, the team. After the dismal performance in Italy, Toto Wolff came over the radio to Lewis and apologized for the undrivable car. Lewis implored his team to keep working hard and has maintained that attitude. Mercedes have been doing their best to give Lewis a competitive car, but some major roadblocks are standing in the way. The biggest of them is the 2022 regulations. This year has been a total overhaul of the technical regulations and a big reduction in the spending limit of teams. Teams are limited to $140 million of spending towards the performance of the car. For big teams like Mercedes, this is a big hit. It also means that they might not be able to invest in more research or manpower like they normally would. If that's the case, then Formula 1's aim to level the playing field is working. Mercedes fans have been getting excited with each race, hoping that there will be a major upgrade. But nothing has fixed their problems. Top of the list of those problems is porpoising. That's when the cars bounce up and down because of the ground effect that generates a lot of downforce. Mercedes have experienced some of the worst porpoising out of any of the teams. George Russell seems to be optimistic about the prospects of Mercedes returning to the top of the table. He said that if the team can fix its porpoising issues, then it will solve 99% of its problems. But Russell may be waiting some time. If Ferrari and Red Bull haven't got on top of the issue, then it looks unlikely that Mercedes will. Next up, from first to last. This time last season, Lewis Hamilton had 3 wins and a second place. It was Hamilton and Verstappen battling for supremacy, and it was already clear that it would be a season to remember. But this year is a different story. Lewis trailed the championship leader Charles Leclerc by more than 50 points, and it's probably only going to get worse. Verstappen had a rocky start to the season, but he has won every race that he raced in. Meanwhile, the young superstar Charles Leclerc is also proving why Ferrari was right to gamble on him. Hamilton is forced to watch the battle from way back in the midfield. At the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, he finished in 13th place after getting stuck behind Pierre Gasly's AlphaTauri. He was fighting to break into the top 10 the entire race, but he never made too much progress. And even worse, Hamilton was lapped by his ex-championship rival Max Verstappen. That must be difficult to stomach. On the other side of the paddock, Max Verstappen's father was having a great time. Jos Verstappen, who is also an ex-F1 driver, said, "I did enjoy seeing Max lap Hamilton after everything that happened last year. It just shows how far Mercedes have fallen." That's why 2-time world champion Mika Häkkinen thinks that Lewis is probably sulking, complaining and whining to the team. The Finnish driver said that Lewis would be very frustrated by the situation and how much of a step back Mercedes have taken, but would love to be a fly on the wall in a Mercedes team meeting. Next, fight against the criticism. Helmut Marko always has something to say these days. In Italy, he said that Hamilton was probably thinking that he should have stopped last year when being lapped by Max Verstappen. Johnny Herbert, who is a former racing driver and F1 commentator, called the comment a cheap shot and said that it was typical Red Bull. Herbert is not counting Lewis out just yet and thinks that if Mercedes can pull it together, then the 7-time world champion can. Hamilton has responded to the comments through an indirect social media post. In an Instagram post, Hamilton said, "Working on my masterpiece. I'll be the one to decide when it's finished." He also said after the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix that he would keep working as hard as possible to try and improve the team's position somehow. And this is the tone that Hamilton has kept through the entire season. After his surprise Bahrain podium, he said that it was by far the best results Mercedes could have achieved, but that the team needed to keep their heads down. Then, during the Australian Grand Prix, where he would eventually manage a P4 finish, he had only praise for his team and teammate. But as the most successful Formula 1 driver of all time, it's difficult to imagine that Lewis can put up with this forever. He did put up with 5 seasons of mediocre McLaren car between 2009 and 2013, but he was a much younger driver then, and he still managed 12 race wins. This year's Mercedes looks very unlikely to win any races. Plus, back then he only had a single world championship and he was hungry for now. Now he's getting close to 40 and has achieved almost everything he set out to in the sport. Next, end of the road? Once again, all of this news has reignited rumors of Lewis Hamilton retiring. In 2018, Nico Rosberg said that the future of the sport after Hamilton would be Verstappen and Leclerc. It looks like that has already come true, but Lewis is refusing to call it quits. In 2019, Hamilton admitted that at some point he would be forced to stop racing, but at the time, he had no intentions to do so. He said that he felt fantastic physically and mentally, and that the finish line wasn't in sight yet. People have been predicting Hamilton's retirement for years. Some speculated that 2021 would be his last season, while others thought that the close championship battle with Verstappen last year breathed fire back into the now 37-year-old. After the Abu Dhabi race last year, Toto Wolff and Mercedes were quick to put down any suggestions of Hamilton retiring. He went silent on social media and seemed to withdraw from the sport. After all, it must have been hard to accept. He was in a winning position in the race and was on a 3-race win streak. The stage was set for his historic 8th world title until the closing few laps. The controversy, the fallout, and the disaster that Mercedes have experienced so early in the year may have Hamilton reconsidering his future. Hamilton also revealed that he has struggled mentally and emotionally for a long time, and that it takes a lot of energy to keep going. But just as he came back strong from the end of the last season, he might surprise us all and do it again. He's not a 7-time world champion for nothing. Up next, a thriving teammate. What makes Hamilton's situation even worse is the fact that his teammate seems to be doing very well. In the first 4 races, Russell has managed to keep fighting with the big boys up ahead. In the first race in Bahrain, he finished in P4. He followed that up the next month with a podium at the Australian Grand Prix. He is truly living up to the reputation that he earned through his junior career at Williams. In a complete uncompetitive car stuck at the back of the grid most of the time, Russell scored 16 points last year, including a fairy tale podium finish at the Belgium Grand Prix. Former driver Ralf Schumacher has suggested that there could be a change in the hierarchy at Mercedes after George Russell's impressive race performance. But Russell himself has been quick to put down comments that portray him as outperforming his teammates. During a post-race interview after the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, a former teammate of Lewis Hamilton told George Russell that he had really dominated Hamilton over the entire weekend. But Russell's reply was full of praises for Lewis. He said that it was more of a case of adapting to the difficult setup of the car. Russell also said that Lewis was massively fast and that the weekend in Italy was just a blip. That's what teammates are for. But Nico Rosberg wasn't the only driver to take aim at Hamilton's performance against Russell. Mika Häkkinen said that Lewis could become sensitive and irritated now that he has to compete more with his teammate. When it comes to Lewis Hamilton, it seems that everyone has an opinion. Do you think that Lewis Hamilton is retiring? And is Helmut Marko right? Should he have retired last year? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.